Hello, and welcome to the JCC of Metro Detroit's 22nd annual Lenore Marwill Detroit Jewish Film Festival. My name is Jamie Loeb, and I'm the Senior Director of Cultural Arts here at the JCC, and I am so glad you could join us this evening. Our live film discussions throughout this month are presented in partnership with the Detroit Institute of Art's Detroit Film Theater. I want to thank them for their support and help in making all of these events a reality. Tonight, we also have a special partner, Real Abilities, which is a program of the JCC's Center for Special Needs. We'll be hearing from them in just a moment. So welcome to our first virtual festival. We are so thrilled to be able to connect with all of you from the comfort of your homes. The festival runs from October 4th until the 30th, and all of our films, except this one we're talking about this evening, are available to watch on demand throughout that time. Autism the Musical and Autism the Sequel, which we'll be discussing tonight, are available now until 11:59 on October 22nd. So if you want to see what we're talking about tonight, what the documentaries have to offer, you have some time, but not infinite time. So now until Thursday, October 22nd at 11:59, now is the time. We also, of course, throughout the month have an extensive series of films discussions that will be going on here on YouTube. So we hope you will join us for all of those in addition to all of our films. But you can see the whole lineup of events, of films, all of the things we have to offer right here at our website. Check it out. You can buy tickets there. You can buy festival passes. Everything, as always, is on the website. While you're here at our YouTube channel, also be sure to subscribe, like this video, hit the little reminder bell so that you always know when we have very exciting virtual events coming up. Throughout this evening's discussion, we absolutely want to hear from you. Some of you have already commented to say hello. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you could all be here. Do put your comments into the comment box below, or if you like, you can text your comments to the number. There it is right up here, 248-973-7286, and that number will stay up throughout the program. Feel free to text us with your comments and questions, and our speakers will get to as many as they can. As I mentioned, we have a special partner this evening, the JCC of Metro Detroit Center for Real Abilities. So I want to introduce Ellen Mazeloff, who is the Senior Director of that center, to tell us more about what we have planned for tonight. Hello, Ellen.
Hi, thank you, Jamie. It's my pleasure to be with you tonight. The JCC's Opening the Doors program is a nationally recognized program that for 20 years has provided learning, social, and emotional support services, each year allowing 1,200 students with learning differences and abilities to be included in their Jewish education classrooms in preschools, congregational schools, and day schools with their peers. Through collaborations that we have with educational and health professionals and organizations, we increase the success of all learners by placing special ed teachers, full-time classroom assistants, and part-time early childhood, early intervention paraeducators in the schools. We also provide psychoeducational testing and a teen leadership program. We build community by empowering teachers, teens, families, and professionals by providing workshops and community-wide disability awareness events that usually has 2,500 people throughout the year. Our programs are creating unimaginable moments for families, making dreams of a Jewish education for their child become a dream come true that they might not have thought possible. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our guests tonight. Tonight, we are going to talk about the incredible HBO two-time Emmy-winning Autism the Musical and Autism the Sequel, and Elaine Hall and her work. Elaine, known as Coach E, is an international speaker, media personality, award-winning writer, consultant, and coach. Elaine created the Miracle Project, which will be profiled in the autism films, which you must watch. She has spoken 6 times to the United Nations, written 2 books, and been on all kinds of TV shows and in articles. Elaine is also a good friend of mine and colleague. She's spoken at our programs before, and we are so honored to have her join us tonight. We also have a double thrill. We're thrilled to have Cheryl Chodun with us tonight to interview Elaine and moderate the discussion. Cheryl is an award-winning journalist. Cheryl has won 2 Emmys and in 2014 was inducted in the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. She was a reporter at Detroit's WXYZ Channel 7 for 25 years, previously WWJ reporter and freelance newspaper reporter. She has covered every story imaginable in 35 years and now is teaching broadcast journalism at 2 local universities. Cheryl has also been with us at many events, and it's always a pleasure to see her and have her join us tonight.
Thanks so much, Ellen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Ellen for that kind introduction of both of us, really. It was great. These are such unusual times, aren't they, Elaine? First of all, it's great to see you. Elaine is all the way on the West Coast. I'm here in Detroit. But because we have these unusual times, it's still amazing and wonderful that we can bring programs to the people who enjoy them. Elaine, I want to tell you something. When I hear your intro, number one, it's impressive. And when I brought it up because I love to read when they say that you're, Coach E, which is such a cool name, but an educator, writer, children's acting coach, film, the Miracle Project, which is, maybe you'll tell them a little bit about how you came up with that name. But when I think of it and I look at that, I think, wow, there is so much more behind that. I mean, so the people who are watching should know that Elaine adopted a little baby boy from Russia many years ago. He's in his young 20s now, and that began her journey. And sometimes one thing can change your life, and it did. So, but because we're featuring the movie tonight, the 2 movies, I don't know if you want to start a little bit talking about the movies or the struggles or the beginning. There's so much that goes way beyond how we introduce you. You have so much to your amazing life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I first just want to say how honored I am to be here. And I've been sharing, I'm going to Detroit tomorrow from my couch. So it's really lovely. And Ellen is such a dear friend. And we've met years ago and have stayed in touch, from different parts of the country. And now we're so much closer because we can see each other on Zoom. And Cheryl, as soon as you and I started chatting, I was like, we were long lost friends. And I really feel honored and privileged to be with you. And Jamie, thank you so much. It's an incredible festival. And so to be here with you, all of you, is a joy. And I'll talk about whatever you want me to talk about.
Let's start a little bit with, you want to give us a little bit of a background so that our viewers know a little bit about what started this journey for you.
Oh, absolutely. So I was a TV and acting coach. I worked with some of the biggest and brightest children's stars at the time, and also worked. It was when I was working on the film The Flintstones that I got my name, Coach E. I'll tell you a little inside stuff. When young children are hired to play roles in film, they often hire twins to play one role. So I was Pebbles and Bam Bam's acting coach, and I had the good fortune of working with John Goodman and Rosie O'Donnell, and even An Incredible Day with Elizabeth Taylor, which I won't go into now, but not saying to name drop at all, but it just that I had I was doing really well in my career. And my name is Elaine, and one of the Pebbles' name was also Elaine. And so whenever the director would call Elaine, we both would turn our heads, right? And so my name became Coach E. And that stuck. And so I've been coaching now ever since. It was on the set of the Flintstones that, even though I was working this wonderful career and with children and I loved it, what I knew I wanted was a child of my own. and a biological child. I wanted my own Bam Bam. And I was not able to give birth biologically. And I came really through my spirituality and my Jewish tradition. I was able to come to a place of acceptance and begin my journey to Russia. And this is in the film. You'll see that the film starts off pretty much there, where I journeyed to Russia to adopt a little boy, and I knew nothing about autism, disabilities. All I knew was that I wanted to be a mom, and that's where it all started.
And the picture, I've seen the film, and it shows pictures of you and your little boy, Neil. You named him Neil. It was kind of Niall, wasn't it? His name was Nial. You named him Neil. But yes, for people who haven't seen the film, you need to see it. But you'll see Elaine and her newly adopted little boy laying on the floor, rolling around, kind of cuddling. And it's very warm and everything. And keep in mind that Elaine, when she adopted this little boy, had no idea that he was autistic, right? So you had no idea that he had any disabilities at all. He looked like adorable little, sweet little blonde kid.
Yeah, he, as my mother, my dear mother, may she rest in peace, was saying, it's like he was waiting for me. And at the time, the doors for adoption in Russia had been closed for 2.5 years. They had just opened. And so he was there waiting for me. It was the weirdest feeling, Cheryl. It was as if I was meeting him in daycare. It wasn't like I had to get to know him. I instantly knew he was my child, and I was, if he was waiting for me.
And then it sounds like you really bonded on the plane on the way home when you held him and he was just close to you, and you must have been elated. There's an elation, I think, that probably comes with motherhood. So, I mean, because we want to talk about so many things, and after I read the book, I can see that we could go on for a long time. But why don't you briefly say, let the viewers know what happened when you brought Neil home? So
when I brought Neil home, he was very, very sick at first, and he had fevers and scurvy and malnutrition, and oh my gosh. So first thing I did was just help to get him healthy. And then my friends and family started noticing things, like he wasn't responding to his name. He wasn't making eye contact. He would flap his hands like this, all the time. And he would head bang, and I'd never had a child in my own home. So I really didn't know. And when people were telling me there was something wrong with him, I was in that river. I was in denial, and I love denial. And I say that now. I speak, when I speak with parents and professionals, I think there's nothing wrong with denial, because people need to be where they are when they are there. But I didn't want to hear or see any bad news. And when he was 2 years, 10 months, I can say this: we're at a Jewish film festival. He went right after he had his bris, he was diagnosed with autism. And
you were still in denial, weren't you?
I was still in denial, but all I knew was when my son would flap his hands, because I'm a movement and drama specialist. So when he would flap his hands, everybody flapped with me, flap. I'd pretend we were birds, and we'd flap around the room together, and he'd spin in circles and I'd spin with him, and we'd play Ring Around the Rosies together. And I just intuitively joined his world. And because in his world, we would connect. The challenge was bringing him into our world. And I just would, he'd make loud noises and bang, and I'd get out pots and pans and bang with him. And when he got diagnosed, traditional therapists, they said I was crazy and I was enabling his autism. But the traditional therapy at the time caused him severe anxiety, and all that bonding that we had built started to, there started to be so much anxiety happening. And I knew there had to be a better way. And so I just kept doing what I was doing. And fortunately, I found a doctor in Maryland, Dr. Stanley Greenspan, and a phenomenal speech pathologist in Maryland. And I'm living in Los Angeles, and actually from Rhode Island. So on the East Coast, Dr. Barry Prezant, who basically, I like to say, co-signed my insanity. They said, keep doing what I'm doing, but learn about autism. So I started learning everything I possibly could about autism and understanding the purpose behind everything my son was doing.
And I just want to say one thing. Keep in mind too, for everybody, I want you to know that Neil is 26 now. So this is back in the day, we could say, when this is 23 years ago, people didn't know as much about autism. I saw a statistic the other day that 20 years ago, that the number per thousand or per million, even, the children who had autism that we knew about was so low. And now it's so much higher because it's diagnosed. We didn't know that much about it.
We didn't know. No, I mean, even 23 years ago, I knew nothing about autism, nothing.
And probably your family didn't either. I think in the book, it even said that some of your family members even said to you, you need to send him back. Something's not right. And that had to have been so hurtful, because I mean, once a child is your child, you love them unconditionally, no matter what, I think.
It's exactly. People were saying, send him back. I'm like, what? Or put him in an institution. And I was like, he just got out of an institution. I'm not putting him in an institution. And
but he was doing things that some people couldn't. And again, maybe breaking things or throwing things, or he was doing things that when you brought him to a family dinner that they weren't expecting. I think they weren't ready for it, maybe because they didn't understand it.
I think that's really important, is that I wasn't ready. People weren't ready. People didn't understand. I mean, thank goodness we have the organizations that we have today, the incredible program that Ellen runs for families with children with disabilities. And but we didn't have that. I mean, we didn't have the awareness we have today.
Well,
and
part of it, I think, it's your drive. You did not give up. I mean, I'm going to try to do this, even though maybe it isn't the best, but this is a little picture. I'm going to put it right there. Can you see that? Let me see. There you go. This is the cover of the book. And that's Neil when he was a little kid, maybe 8. Was he 8 there, do you think? Or
probably right around 7 or 8. Yeah.
So what I want to say, so just so we can get to the point of I give you so much credit. You're so inspiring that you did not give up. You went to one program after another, and you hired coaches or helpers. I mean, the right people. And so you got to a point when he was a little boy that you started a program, and talk about that at the Jewish Center.
Sure. Well, I never could find the right fit for my son, partially because he was adopted, so he needed the bonding. And what I ended up doing was creating my own. I synthesized everything I was learning about autism from the greats all over the country into a methodology that's now called 7 Keys. And I actually was able to write a textbook on that. And I trained my actor, singer, dancer, musician friends and what I was doing, what I was learning, and developed a creative methodology in order to reach my son. And through that, we had people joining my son's world, doing exactly what I was doing. And I was mentored by Dr. Stanley Greenspan back east, and then Dr. Ricky Robinson in LA, and Barry Prezant in Rhode Island. So I was mentored by these people who helped me create this methodology of using creativity to reach my son.
So you used music and dancing and singing and
to reach him. And then I had quit working in the film business. It was just, taking too much of my time and commitment to be with my son. And slowly, Neil, my son, emerged into our world, out of isolation, communicative, happy, still autistic, still non-speaking, but able to go to a regular school with support, which was huge. And it was time for me to get back to work. So I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So a dear friend, Michelle Wolf, told me there was a grant available from the Jewish Community Foundation in Los Angeles and to start a theater company. So I'd never written a grant before. I'm not a special educator. Beginner's luck. And I really believe I took guidance from above, from Hashem. I took guidance from above, and
you wrote a grant in a day, right? You had one day to write a grant.
One day, one of my best friends. Yeah, my best friends was reading it when in line in Disneyland, and turned it in, and beginner's luck, got the grant and started a theater company for individuals with autism, ADHD, Tourette's, Down syndrome, anybody who would get kicked out of another program. And it also had a parent support group with Rabbi Sean Fields-Meyer, because I didn't want to go to there were so many negative support groups. And I created my ideal world, which was using creativity and music and dance and drama. We had special educators helping us find volunteers and professional actors. And we wrote and produced an original musical the first year, starring individuals with disabilities on and off the autism spectrum. And we used film. We had a film component to it, fully inclusive. And this was before people were, we included all abilities together. And together we wrote this original musical.
So there's one step so because you got the grant, you kind of felt like it was a miracle. Isn't you say that? So you named your program before the movie, The Miracle Project.
Yes. What happened was I was using like this is a miracle. And I had a phone call from a potential volunteer and said, I'd like to be involved in this miracle project. And I'm like, oh, that's the name. Exactly.
So I guess a couple things that sort of struck me, because you live in California, because you worked in the film industry, an acting coach, and you worked with some TV shows. Was Grace Under Fire, or was that one of the TV shows you worked on? So you had those contacts. So did somebody come to you and say, could you be part of our documentary, or could we do a documentary or something like that? And then is that how that all started to roll?
I was so out of the film business at that time. I have to tell you, I was calling on a lot of favors to help me with the project, but it just so happened I do private coaching as well to families and to kids and young adults now, and older adults. So I was doing private coaching, and a parent of one of the kids that I was working with was producing a film about autism. And they didn't want it to be about autism. Her name is Janet Grillos, who's one of the producers on the film. And Kristen Stills is also a producer. They didn't want it to be about autism. They wanted it to do something that regular kids do, where autism is the obstacle. And
so when you undertook this and you started, did you think, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to do this? I mean, it was to watch, when you see in the movie, to our viewers, when you watch it, and I hope you watch it, but were you thinking, did you doubt? Did you say, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to do this? Did you use the 5 main kids? But did you doubt it ever that it was going to come to fruition?
I doubted every single second. But there's a midrash of when Moses is carrying the tablets down Mount Sinai. When he starts to doubt himself, they get really, really heavy. And when he has faith and trust, the angels carry the tablets for him. And I really believe that I've been carried, that Neil and I have been carried. I mean, I would hear a voice in my head that would say, if you do this, I promise Neil and you will be taken care of. And so it was not even something I had choice. There was no choice. It was just something that I knew that I was meant to do. And
So
yeah.
the movie itself, though, I mean, the documentary, somebody came to you and said, could we do it, right? I mean,
Janet Grillo brought Trisha Regan, the incredible director, and Janet and Kristen Stills, they were the producers, and they filmed a little bit of what I was doing already, and they asked.
Kristen Stills, by the way, is that the wife of
Stephen Stills?
Crosby?
Yeah.
Stephen Stills.
Stephen Stills, who's in the movie.
Too.
Just the most down-to-earth, wonderful, both of them.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash, right? I want people to know. So there's a singing group, right? So his son is in it. So it's really.
His son is in the film. And they were producing the movie, and they asked me if I could do another season. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I just kind of followed the feeling inside to do it. And really, the reality is we wanted to make a difference. We knew how our children, the love, the joy, who they were, and we wanted the world to know what autism really is, because nobody really knew. This was now, it was 2006 when they first filmed us, and nobody knew really what our families know, what everyone knows now about autism, just how extraordinary these human beings are. And we wanted to change the way the world perceived autism.
I think it did. And I think when people see the film that it will. And then also, of course, I was going to say to you that two of your students, or two of the children who are in the film, who were in the project, were, it was Wyatt and maybe was it Henry? And Adam too. Adam could play the music, but you had a couple kids who were on the spectrum, but a little higher on the spectrum. So you knew that something was going, that they could do an introduction, or you had a wide spectrum on the spectrum. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, that was
helpful.
Again, the producers and the directors, they wanted to show a wide range on the spectrum. And the first. They shot 200 hours of footage.
Wow.
A massive amount of footage. And then, so there were 12 kids originally. And
they whittled it down to 5 then?
Yeah. I think the first rendition of the first edited version was like about 7 hours. And then they got it down. They were with an incredible post-production, major production company, Boone and Murray, who bought the footage and then turned it into Autism the Musical, which is 90 minutes. So we had a whole gamut of the spectrum. Everyone from Neil, who is non-speaking autistic, to Henry, who is highly verbal, and everything in between. Lexi, who sings like an angel. So I always knew that I could count on her to do some beautiful music, all original music and all original story. And that was part of the Miracle Project. The concept was creating original musicals based on the thoughts, the ideas, the wishes, the dreams. They call it, obsessions. We call them passions and enthusiasms of those on the spectrum.
And the interesting part was that they, even though there were more than, I think in the whole, on the stage were more than just the 5, but they followed the 5, and they went and interviewed the families and had footage when they were babies. And and then the sequel, of course, you did. How many years later then you did this? So this amazing movie, this one, first, let's just go back for a second. It won an Emmy, didn't it? Or some sort of awards. It won awards.
It won 2 Emmys, Best Documentary, and also Best Editing.
Wow. That was amazing. And then was it your decision or their decision to follow and do a sequel? Was it how many years later? Was it 8 years later?
Yeah, I was always just the subject. So I wasn't a producer on either films. And so Sasha Alpert from Boone and Murray called me 2 years ago and said, guess what? We were ready to do a sequel. And HBO made that decision to do the sequel.
So I want to back up a little bit, Elaine, because it is the movie's wonderful. The sequel is wonderful. And the children came so far. But I know that one thing that was stuck out in my mind of the 5 families that they followed, I think only 4 marriages lasted of the 5. I think only 1 stayed together. And I know you had some struggles, your first marriage also. I mean, when an autistic child, or when even a difficult child, an ADHD child, a child that has a lot of difficulties, sometimes both parents can't weave it together. And do you think I thought I read in your book that 80% of marriages was that?
There's a statistic of that. So the film actually followed many other families, but then whittled it down to those 5. So there's some, really beautiful intact families that remain together. The way I look at it is the families that split up, there was always
already something,
and that disability or illness, whatever, kind of puts Miracle Grow on a character defect that was already present.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And the children, have you, so during your struggles, though, your own struggles, I mean, you had a lot of ups and downs. I mean, there were a lot of ups and downs. There was a moment, I think, when you didn't even know where your next penny was going to come from, almost. I'm sure you had loving family, but still, so it's been a roller coaster. So when you look back, can you share some emotions about that?
Yeah, so I went through some very hard times. There was a time where I stood in line to get canned food for Thanksgiving for Neil and I, and we had some dark times. It was like the least of my worries was that he was breaking everything in the house. I could duck from that, but then we had some really hard times. But what I realized, and this is when I consult with parents, is that I had to make myself happy, no matter what. No matter what was going on, I had to be at peace so that I could be the best that I could be
for Neil.
For Neil.
And for yourself.
And for myself. But so often, so many of us, all moms, we care for our children. We are looking outward, and it was just, I mean, not to be cliche, but as I say, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Right, exactly.
So I meditated. I kept my friends. Some friends split, but the ones that stayed, they really stayed. And my friends close, my spiritual community. Since I couldn't go to temple, I would have Shabbat dinners at my house, and friends would bring food, and so.
And Neil had a bar mitzvah, right? He did have a.
Well, this is another miracle. My cousin Gloria used to send me newspaper articles about, bar mitzvah for people to spell. I'm like, it ain't gonna happen. I'm not paying my bills right now. I can't, there's so many speech therapy, occupational therapy. The last thing I'm going to think about is that. And I got offered a job at Vista Del Mar, a large nonprofit in Los Angeles, to create a bar and bat mitzvah program for individuals on the spectrum.
Wow.
And it just so happened to be Neil's bar mitzvah year.
Wow.
And I told them, look, I've never done this before. To get advice, always say yes, because you can always say no, but always say yes. I said, never done this before, but I trained a whole staff of actors how to work with kids, on the spectrum. So, in all abilities. So I'll train clergy. And I did, I found some wonderful people. One was a cantor who had worked with us at the Miracle Project, and some other, my team, and trained a rabbi, and we started. Neil was the first bar mitzvah. And
so Neil did start communicating through a computer, right? He types out his thoughts or his words, right?
He types his thoughts, and
to this day, right? He still
does. He's a multimodality communicator. He uses sign language. There's an app on his phone that he can push icons so he can order quickly in restaurants. I want French fries with lemonade, please. So there's an app on his iPhone. And for parents who are watching this, please come Facebook me and I can give you, all the names and all that are in the chat. And he also types his deeper thoughts. He typed his Torah portion, and he also danced his Torah portion, and the Shema was in his Torah portion. So we actually told him to put his hands Shema, and he was able to say Shema. And we had a beautiful bar mitzvah, and then I started this whole bar mitzvah program, and that also has become a national program where I consult with people all over the country, and going to be writing a book about that as well too soon. And but that there's so much possible. And Neil, that you've mentioned when he types to communicate. That's one of the jobs that he has. He works. He travels and presents. He's presented with me at the United Nations typing.
Wow.
So he's kind of.
I guess we could say that. And I'm going to ask you too to speak out to parents of kids on the spectrum. But I think that really, when you think about it, if you read the book, everyone who's watching, and after you see the movie, I would say that, and this goes for you, and it goes for me too, and it goes for maybe all of us right now in the pandemic. But it seems like your life was like paradox. You had a life of paradoxes. Like you were fearful but grateful. You were sad but you were happy. And I think that a lot of people are feeling that way right now, unrelated to a child with disabilities, but parents of kids with disabilities. I think that is a good parent. I mean, yes, fearful of the future, but so grateful you have them. Or you might have been so fearful of what was going on with Neil, but so grateful for, your second husband who came into your life and was wonderful. And those people who, your friends that did help you out. And so I think that paradox is a good term. Do you agree? Do you think?
I love that. I love that paradox. And, just to talk a minute on that, my dear friend Kathy Kadam says, she calls it double dip feelings, where you can contain two seemingly paradoxical feelings all
Right.
within one. And I love that paradox. And it was, and I think we're all living in that today. I have so much gratitude. And that's really the theme of the Miracle Project. It's Einstein's quote: there's only two ways to live your life. One is as if nothing is a miracle. The other is as if everything is a miracle. And, when I speak, I've spoken at, lots of conferences and organizations all over the country and internationally as well. And I usually start off with that quote, because all of us can look at our lives as nothing is a miracle, or if you just look at how your hands open and close, that's a miracle.
Right.
The sun
One
is
foot in front of the other, that we can walk, we can get up in the morning and, say a little Modani prayer. But I think that's, and I think that sometimes, and I have done many events with Ellen and with the Opening the Doors program.
Yes.
And usually we would go off to the side at the end and have a small little extra discussion. And I know, and after reading your book, I know that, every day was a struggle for you for a long time, but there were joys. There were joy. Bless you. Bless you.
Sneezing on the truth. Sneezing on the truth.
That means it's true. That every day that there were blessings. There was that one very touching, after your mom passed away, how Neil brought a little figurine to you or something. I mean, you knew that in his heart, in his mind, he was thinking, he knew what was going on. So I thought he was sad.
Yes, that's in the book. I talk about my mom's passing, and everyone was going, "Oh, Neil doesn't know what's going on." And after the Shiva Minyan, we had a figure where I was a little figurine that I used to say, Mom, that I was going to go see, Grandma, and I would say that this is Grandma. And Neil went off the bookshelf and got the figurine and handed it to me and did the sign language for sad.
Wow.
It's like he knew exactly what was going on.
Right.
Exactly.
And
That's the thing, for families, presume intelligence. Our kids, they know so much more, not only than we think they know, but about the universe, the way people should be. And the same kids who bite and kick and have a hard day in school come to the Miracle Project, and they're sharing about saving the planet and being friends and honesty and truth. And Neil's my teacher. My students, all my students have become my teachers.
what would you say your message is to, first of all, I'm going to ask you a double question, your advice to parents who are struggling? I mean, because you definitely had many days of struggle. What would your advice be? And what do you think the message is in the movie?
Well, Trisha Regan would say that the director would say that the message of the movie is these children are somebody's babies. And the message of the movie is about love, especially the first one.
Right, right.
And my thought about the movie is there's more to us than meets the eye. And to value and to be curious about every person you meet, but really about those on the spectrum that do things that you may not completely understand.
Right.
My advice to parents, I mean, there's so many things that when I talk to parents, is really trust yourself. You know your child better than any expert. I mean, I was told that I was crazy for what I was doing, but I knew that it worked for my son. And
you weren't going to give up.
I wasn't going to give up. We're scrappy people, right?
We are.
We're scrappy.
I want you to hold your thought for a second, because people who are watching us, that if they want to send in a question, we have a little chat board, and I'm going to see your question. If you want to send a question in for Elaine, we have maybe another 15 minutes to talk. So if anybody does have a question who's watching, please just type it out and I'll see it. But go ahead, share your thoughts about the message of the film, because I do think I love the movie, and I think that even for people who don't have a child on the spectrum, I have a grandson who's on the spectrum, but I think that some people just don't get it or can't absorb it.
Yeah, I think the movie, because I've had so many people say to me, I turned it on in my living room to watch it, Elaine, because you were in it, and my husband didn't want to watch it. And next thing you know, my husband's sitting down next to me and watching it.
Mine too. Mine
Yeah.
too. We watched it downstairs in the kitchen. I said, I'm going to watch it. And he pulled up a chair, and then he watched it and the sequel.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Both films are about, they're not about autism. They're about the best of humanity. They're about love. They're about joy. Autism the Musical especially is about the arts and how the arts connect, and really about families, and all we want is to be valued. And so both films are universal. The second film, Autism the Sequel, is young adults trying to find their way in the world. And what young adult is not trying to find their way in the world? And just as putting on a musical was the obstacle when they were children, just being a young adult on the planet is an obstacle when you also have a disability. So
tell us a little bit about Neil now. He's 26. Tell us what he's doing. Is he living on his own? Is he living with you still, or is he, actually you shared with me that he isn't now, right? He's got an apartment, or
wow.
Talk to us about him.
Yeah, so Neil lives with a roommate. There he is. It's Rosh Hashanah dinner.
There's the three of you. That was the three of you, right?
My husband, Jeff, who's a marriage and family therapist. And Neil lives in his own apartment. He has a roommate, and he gets 24/7 support. But he lives independently. It's not a group home. It's his own apartment. He chooses when he eats, when he doesn't eat, where he wants to go, what he does. Prior to COVID, he worked on an organic farm, the Shemesh Organic Farms, and part of the JCA in Malibu. And he also worked at the farm's grocery store and was turned. We noticed that he liked to turn labels around, make labels. So that's what he did in the grocery store. Is he went in and turned all the labels around. It's like using for when I talk to parents, use your child's strengths. Be curious. What do they love? What do they enjoy? There's a whole story I can share, but I know we don't have time. Is how he got to working in the organic farm. But what do your children love to do? And watch that. Be observant. Be curious to who they are and what they enjoy. There's always know and trust that there's, just as we all have our own mission, they have their own mission. And he started kind of a movement at the JCA. They hired Neil, and he did so well that they now have a whole disability program. And after COVID, that'll start up again. But meanwhile, it's so right now he's not as he would like to have, as he's typed before. He'd like to have more purpose in his life because he's not working, and so we're starting to do some things where he's doing deliveries and running errands with with his support staff, and then also typing. And we just did a labor of love video that he was featured in. And if anybody wants to Facebook me, I'm happy to send you the link to the video. It's on YouTube. It's called Of One Breath. And you'll see him as he is today. And
right, I watched it last night. I mean, it's like it's almost like a PSA in a way, isn't it? It's like because this is Disability Month, right?
It's Disability Employment and Awareness and Employment Month. And then February is actually Jewish Disability Awareness and Employment. But this particular video celebrated diversity and inclusion. So it's for all.
Right. And it's only about, is it 3 minutes or 4 minutes?
Yeah, 4 minutes. 4 minutes. It's got.
So it's wonderful. Yes, if you should put the link out so that our viewers could see it, because I loved it. It was wonderful. And Neil is at the beginning and the end, isn't he? At the end, he's got a mustache. He's a grown man. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. You should be so proud of yourself, Elaine. Do you ever close your eyes and think, oh my gosh, look at, I'm sure that you have had an impact on so many lives.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so proud of him because, I mean, all of our kids with disabilities, just to walk out of the house every day with people giving you dirty looks and things being too loud. And I mean, Neil and my students, they're my heroes. And for me, if I can support them and make their lives more easier and joyous and help them to be the best they can be, and if I can support families and I can help change culture, I mean, that's really my mission, is to help change the way the world perceives ability.
Right.
Then I'm just doing, my job. And but I'm so proud of Neil every day. I mean, he comes over, he spends the weekends with us, and some days during the week he'll come and stay with us still. And he just gets up and does his dishes, he sets the table, he makes his bed, and he's just.
Does he still have any moments? Oh,
yeah. Autism is forever.
But I mean, moments where he might have a meltdown a little bit, or
big or huge. And when I consult with my families and with parents, that it's like, it doesn't mean everything's gone awry. I mean, we'll have huge meltdowns again. We can have 364 perfect days, and one day he'll, too much excitement and disappointment. And so rather than where I used to go, which is, oh my God, this is a horrible thing, now I just go to gathering things up, realizing, okay, how do we need to listen better? Neil types in the movie. Well, I don't want to give it away for those of you who haven't seen it, but one of the things that's important to him is for me to really listen to him and not throw my judgment onto who he is. And I think every time there's a huge meltdown, it's an opportunity to listen more, to ask why.
As you're sweeping up the glass. The thing is about the movie also that I want our viewers to know is that the spectrum is wide. So Neil is at one end of the spectrum, but, maybe Henry or the other, I wanted to,
Wyatt, yeah.
and Wyatt
Well,
were at the other end of the spectrum. I mean, they were very, when he was on the swing and saying, he was being bullied, and why do people have to do that, and why do people have to go into their own world, and maybe I do that, and I mean, so the spectrum was wide. I think there was Neil, and then there was the end, and then Lexi was in the middle, maybe somewhere, and Adam, one of the people in the film who is heavily on the spectrum, is in the symphony now, right, or in a symphony.
Yeah, Adam, his cello is at the Berklee School of the Arts in Massachusetts. His mom, Roseanne, is just incredible. He's in the video as well. He's in this video. And the spectrum is wide. And well, a couple things. A number of this, we have classes now going. We have over 12 classes now at the Miracle Project, and we're virtual. So we serve kids all over the world. We have students all over the world. And one of the places that we have a program is through an agency called Bright and Quirky. And we are,
that's a good name.
Yeah, well, it's for extremely bright children who still have challenges, socially emotional. And so improv is a great equalizer, there. And so, and then with the Miracle Project, we have everything from our non-speakers to we have students who are getting professional work in TV and film. The show Atypical.
There are some shows. There was a show, The Good Doctor. He was
The Good Doctor. One of my students was on that. Former students was on that. And the show Atypical, the peer group were all former Miracle Project students, but one. And Neil made an appearance on Atypical. Season 3, there's a disability room, and the producers of Atypical are just amazing. And they cast all people with disabilities to be in the disability center, and I've got to cast all my Miracle Project kids. And yeah, we have classes, because the good thing, here's another thing, paradoxical. The good thing about Zoom is we have students joining the Miracle Project classes now from New York, Wisconsin, Alabama, Tennessee, all over the country, because they can.
Yeah. Elaine, we're going to wrap up in a few moments. Are there some closing thoughts that you wanted to share with us about Neil's future, about your future now, what you're doing? I think, would you say that adopting Neil set you on the path of your life? Do you know what I'm saying? It changed your life.
Yeah, adopting Neil is the greatest gift of my life. He's my greatest teacher. My husband is also. My students. I feel so blessed. Life is challenging. I think if I want to leave with, I always like to leave with, listen to the child that doesn't speak. Trust yourself, trust your instincts. Ask for help. Know that you're never alone.
Right.
And let life be a journey, and show up.
Don't give up.
Never give up.
Never give up. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. I just want to say again that the book should be, I hope people can, the book is called Now I See the Moon. And it's really the story of your life, that what you told us, in briefly, how you summarized it. Jamie's back with us, I see. And I just so appreciate you being with us tonight. I hope people will see the movie and the sequel, because I loved them. My husband, like I said, pulled up a chair. I think that it's educational, it's inspirational, it's teaching us so many things. So, and Elaine, I know that you and I will talk again for sure. So, of course, for sure. Thank you so much. Jamie?
Well, I just want to echo what Cheryl said. Elaine, thank you so much for being here. And I also want to say thank you to Cheryl for doing this wonderful interview. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. I do want to let you know that we have another film discussion tomorrow night, Tuesday, October 20th at 7 p.m. We'll be talking about the film They Ain't Ready for Me with the director of the film, the subject of the film, and a local activist. It's going to be a party. So tomorrow night, Tuesday, October 20th, 7 o'clock. I hope you'll join us for our next event. And thanks again. See you soon.